Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You kill my father. Prepare to die. Stop saying that. Hello! Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria and today I'm going to be bringing you my February wrap-up. I did so well this month. I read 4 whole novels. Gasp, you say? I know, it's extraordinary! So for those of you that have watched my January wrap-up, you'll know that I think the whole counting the number of books you've read as a competition thing is just completely ridiculous. I think that reading in general is a joy and a pleasure, and you should read as much or as little gives you joy or pleasure. If that's one page, that one page is a blessing. I see booktubers reading 10, 15, 20 books a month, and that's fantastic for them, but I ain't about that life. 10 books? No. I got my 4 done, and I feel pretty good about that. It was good, I enjoyed it, I had essays, it was wonderful. Life's good. So do not feel bad about how much or how little you read, just enjoy it, because the fact that we get to read it all is truly a gift. So that being said, let's get into the wrap-up. The first book I read this month was Zenith by Sasha, Alsberg, and Lindsay Cummings. I made a book talk about this. I will link it below if you want to know more thoughts than what I give here. Check that out if you haven't yet. If you haven't heard of this book, you are probably new to BookTube, or possibly were dead and have come back to life, because everybody has been talking about this book. But if by some obscure reason / miracle you don't know what it is, Zenith follows Andy, or the Bloody Baroness as she's more commonly known, and her crew of criminal lady space pirates. Blackmailed into a rescue mission for the son of the man who once turned her outlaw, Andy confronts the ghosts of her past, all the while a new evil arises in the galaxy. Torn between the girl she once was and the killer she's become, Andy, and also her crew, must decide where they stand in the war that is brewing before it's too late. As I said, I will link my book talk on this below because I spent, I don't know, like 20 minutes or something going through it. It was really just okay for me. There was a lot of good stuff, the plot was really entertaining, it was definitely a page-turner, but overall, the writing was not great and the emotional pacing was a little bit off. That being said, I did enjoy it. I gave it 3 out of 5, which for me is like, it's not exceptional, but it was good. Like, I enjoyed it. I am pretty easy to please because I read for story, for plot mostly, rather than critically, so I enjoy pretty much anything that is an exciting story, regardless of the issues the book may or may not have. Yeah, I will link that book talk. 3 out of 5. It was okay. You should still check it out, especially if you like sci-fi. The second book I read this month was, drumroll, City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. As some of you might know, I've been doing the Cassandra Clare books read-along that Emma Books is hosting, so second month we read City of Ashes, and again, if you haven't heard of this, like, you must have been raised by wolves in the wilderness and have only recently come back to civilization. So if that's you, comment below because I would love to be your friend and know what it was like to be raised by wolves. Maybe I'm just jealous because I want to be raised by wolves.
Wolves are great!
Just to clarify for you who have been raised by wolves, City of Ashes is the second book in the Mortal Instrument series, which follows Clare. Reeling from the shocking news revealed about her family at the end of the first book, City of Bones, Clare tries to put the pieces of her life back together, all the while the evil Valentine gets up to more evil shenanigans. Don't want to give away more than that, especially if you haven't read the series, because it's absolutely amazing. I don't know who in the YA world would have not read this series, except for that kid raised by wolves. But yeah, if by some chance you haven't, you definitely need to. It's about demon hunters. I don't know what else to tell you except that it's fantastic. Read these immediately, and if you've read them, which I assume most of you have, you should definitely give them a reread and join the read-along, because Emma's hosting live shows every month, and it's a really fun place to talk about the books with other nerds. It's a good time. The third book that I read this month was The Last NAMSARA by Kristen, Ciccarelli. I have since learned how to say her last name. If you saw the book talk I did on this, I had no idea and I butchered the shit out of it. So I have been informed that it is Ciccarelli, and yeah, I'll leave the link to that book talk as well. You should know that this is like the greatest book in the history of the world. Well, maybe not, but it's up there. It's phenomenal. I could not put it down. I binged it in a day. I'm in love. I am so grateful that I just randomly saw this in the bookstore and picked it up knowing nothing about it, because it is absolutely incredible. If you haven't heard of this book, The Last NAMSARA follows Asha, who is also known as the Iskari, or the Destroyer. Named after the goddess of death, she is essentially the dragon hunter for her kingdom. Dragons are drawn by stories, but stories are illegal. This book opens with Asha making a bargain with her father, the king, which is that she can either kill the first dragon, which happens to be the most dangerous and powerful of all, or marry a real shitface of a man. So with the help of a slave boy, Asha sets out on a journey to kill the first dragon, along the way uncovering truths long kept buried in her kingdom. Magic, love, betrayal, adventure, all of that good stuff comes together in this amazing fantasy adventure with a side of romance. As I said, this book was absolutely incredible. You guys know I'm always asking, where are the dragons? Here are the dragons. Here they are. Beautifully done. It was just so good. In that book talk, I literally just fangirled. So I cut it down to like 6 minutes and something, 7 minutes maybe, but like the footage I had was literally like half an hour hour of me just being like, and then this, and then this, and then it's so beautiful. Oh my gosh, this book is so good. And I'm gonna basically just be repeating this the entire book talk I did right now. So I'm gonna stop talking about this, but oh my word, this book, it was just so good. It made my month. I could do without anything else that I read this month if I could have this. If I had to choose one book to read for the rest of my life. Okay, well, that's a hard question, which I will be likely to change my mind in the next 2 minutes, but as of this moment exactly right now, I would pick this book. And the final book I read this month was The Queen's Rising by Rebecca Ross. If you haven't heard of this book follows Brianna, and it's sort of a fantasy but historical fiction-esque kind of a story. After finishing her 7 years at the Academy, which is a Valenian school of the 5 passions, art, music, drama, wit, and knowledge, Brianna's worst fear becomes realized when she's left without a patron. This means that her whole 7 years of study have been for naught, and she basically has no future. Meanwhile, in the northern kingdom of Maveno, from where Brianna's mysterious father also hails, unrest is brewing, and Brianna suddenly starts having visions of Maveno's past when the last queen fell. When a mysterious lord suddenly offers her patronage, Brianna jumps at the chance. However, he's holding secrets of his own that may be related to Brianna's visions. Realizing these visions hold the key to revolution in Mavena, Brianna must choose between passion and blood, between safety and power, and between love and victory. I just realized I've been saying the kingdom's name wrong for this whole explanation. It's Mavena, I think. Classic Victoria problem.
I never pronounce anything correctly.
Anyhow, this book was okay for me. It was kind of like a 3.75. It started out really strongly. I loved the world and the writing is absolutely beautiful. Like, it even borders on poetic at times. That is the greatest strength of this. It is very beautifully written. But then it kind of just petered out about halfway through. Like, once the plot really gets going, things just happen really quickly without a lot of build-up or suspense. Problems are solved almost too easily. There's also a slow-burning romance, which I found highly unsatisfying. I liked that it wasn't really insta-lovey, but at the same time, it was really anticlimactic. Like, they go from like an accidental elbow graze and like, oh my gosh, we accidentally touched elbows, to like, I love you. But then like, there's no, oh my gosh, he loves me. It's just like, it ends. Like, he says that he loves her and then he just leaves the room and she doesn't say anything. And like, it's not like she just didn't know what to say. It's like, oh yes, this was very expected. And I'm like, you went from like freaking out that you accidentally touched elbows and what does it mean, to like, of course you love me. This makes perfect sense and I knew you would say it. So yeah, that was a little bit underwhelming, but overall it was really interesting. The world itself is actually really cool. It was giving me major Outlander vibes because the northern kingdom of Mavena is kind of loosely based on like the Scottish clans, I think. Although she doesn't actually time travel, she has visions of the past which she experiences kind of like time travel. So there was that connection as well. And yeah, it's a similar time period, sort of like late Renaissance, early modern kind of setting. So if you like Outlander, you might like this. It's called a fantasy book, but I would actually classify it more as historical fiction, even though the world is entirely made up. Obviously, it's not historical fiction, but there's very little magic in it, and the way that it reads is very much like historical fiction. So if you're looking for like a classic high fantasy, don't read this, but if you want more of a history-based fantasy, then you would enjoy this, I think. So yeah, those are the 4 books that I read this month. Overall, it was a really satisfying month. I had a lot of essays due and a lot of stuff going on, so I was quite pleased that I managed to get through 4 novels at all, and I was even more pleased that 2 of them were really good, and while 2 were just okay, they were still enjoyable, so it was a good month for me. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye!